after this guy is pretty much the worst position that we put in. So I'm gonna try my best to say something. I'm from Kona, Hawaii. I was a keiki haumana of the first class of Punana Leo Kona. Graduated from there in 1994, and at that point there was still no kulakaiopuni established. So I actually went to preschool an extra year instead of going to kindergarten. We were all over the newspaper, you know, Hawaiian families boycott school, this and that. The following year we finally got a kulakaiopuni started up. Went to kulakaiopuni Hawaii o Kona, which is now called Ke Kulanui or Ke Kula o Ehunui Kai Malino. I went there till the end of 6th grade. And then I moved, or I attended Kamehameha Schools Kapu Aloha as a boarder from 7th grade to 12th grade. I graduated in 2007, continued on to the University of Hawaii at Mauna, got my bachelor's in Olelo, Hawaii, and I moved back home to Kona just about 2 years ago, like 2 years in a month. My connection to Mauna Kea is very, very much different from Lanakila's. Up until October, I think it was October 7th, they attempted to hold the groundbreaking and the blessing ceremony. Up until that point, I had only been to the mountain 2 times in my life. So I cannot say that, I cannot say the same things that Lanakila can say. I don't have the same connection. But there was something inside of me that pulled me to be here. I was actually at a conference in Oahu those days, and I told my employers, I'm a kumu at Punana Leo Kona. So I've been teaching Hawaiian medium preschool for about 7 years now, since I got out of high school. And I told them, Kalamai, but I need to leave after the first day, because I need to be here. I felt within me that I needed to be here. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what the plan was. But I felt I needed to be here. And coming up here that day really changed my life. And a lot of it is attributed to this guy right here. Seeing the way that he handled the situation and that was true, the truest form of aloha aina that I've ever seen. And that ignited me and that inspired me to want to be a part of this process and to do something. And so again, you know, I've only been here a few times. The past 3 weeks, we've been here 20 days now. And so I've gone up that mountain about 20 times more than I did the rest of my life combined. And being here has really been a life-changing experience. Not just the whole process, but every single day is life-changing in a sense. And you know, instances like this, seeing keiki and haumana, just those little kind that you guys are doing. I don't know how to do it, but it's cool. You know, it's cool. Like back when I was going kula, like those things weren't, you know, that wasn't really the cool thing. We're still kind of really kanalua, you know, to speak our language, to go out and do things like that. But I look at you guys doing that, oh, that's the cool kids, you know. So a different perspective on it. So I'm very appreciative of these opportunities. What brought me here, though, I think, is just an understanding that, you know, my family comes from Kona. They basically, their aina was basically the whole ahupua of Keopu, from the beach right next to Hulihe'e Palace. They call it Kanuha Beach, and then it goes all the way up to the top of the mountain. And hearing the stories of my family growing up and how simple life was, how my dad can go to the pier, Kailua Kona Pier, and just wait on there, and boats would come in and they just throw you akus, throw you opelu, and throw you fish, and you take them home and you have food for your ohana. Growing up, they never had refrigerators, you know, just kapi, everything, holoi, eat it, preserve it. And then seeing the changes when I went to Kamehameha schools in 7th grade, I would come home about once a month because we had things known as common weekends where all the boarders had to ha'alele and they had to get out of the dorms. And so I would come home, and every single time I came home, there was a new building, a new road, new development, new traffic light, more people. And it was really pa'akiki to be away from it and to come back every time and not recognize things and not be familiar with the landscape that I knew my ohana had grown up being familiar with. And so when I got here in October, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what the TMT was. I didn't know how big it was. I didn't know how many stories below the ground, how many stories above ground. I knew Mauna Wakea, home of Poliahu, and that was kind of the basis of my foundation and my knowledge about it. But coming here in October, I got inspired, and Wapakana'o, and something within me told me that if you're gonna attempt to stop the blessing, then you need to attempt to stop the whole thing in general. What's the point of stopping the blessing if you can let them go through? If you're gonna let them go through, might as well let them bless it, yeah? So it goes out better. But ha'ole. And so I think what brought me here is the fact that Hawaii is changing so drastically. And I know that the process started a long time ago, but for me, coming home again as a middle schooler, high schooler, and coming home out of schools, and always seeing something different. Not having access to certain places that we used to go as keiki, go holo holo with my tutu and things like that, and things not being the same, not having as much fish in the ocean. It was just, something like, okay, we gotta do something about it. And so, as I learned more about what's happening up here, I figure if we're not gonna do something about this, then we're not gonna be able to do something about anything. Yeah, if they can go ahead and build this atrocity of a telescope, 2 stories below ground, 18 stories above ground, 34,000 square feet, 8-acre footprint, 3,400 new feet of road, then that's only gonna lead to worse things. Yeah, and we've seen the pattern of development. You do one thing here, and that leads to a whole bunch of other things. And I don't want, my future keiki and future generations to grow up confused and grow up thinking that these things are normal, because these things are very abnormal in Hawaii, and it's basically the opposite of what our kupuna have done. And so one thing that we started with it little by little, talking about it, and then as time has gone on, we've kind of determined that we're gonna stand firm on this mana'o. And the reason for being here, the reason for all of these pilikia development, not just on Mauna Kea, but Kapu Aloha, high development in coastal areas where Hawaiians don't have access to their natural places, I believe, is due to the fact that we are not able to govern ourselves and determine for ourselves what is pono and unpono for our people and for our aina. And so I'm gonna kind of get into a little political realm in a sense, but it's not so much politics as it is oya i'o, yeah, as it is the truth of the matter. And for us, we're standing on a platform at this point that has never been greater for our people, that has never garnered so much attention. And a lot of it has to do in the time that we're living in, the ability to utilize social media, so on and so forth. But it started off as a small group of us. I think the first night we were here, we had about 7 of us. The next night 6, the next night 7, then 8, then 5. And then after the first day of arrest, the very next day we had 300 people here, at least. And this message went across the world. And so we determined that instead of trying to pick the fruits of the tree, instead of trying to trim the leaves and trim the branches, let's huki this whole kumu out of the ground and let's get the roots out of it. And the source of all of these pilikia, I believe, and we've come to believe, is an illegal occupation by the United States of America of our people, dating back to the Overthrow in 1893. And so I'm going to try and go through this as quickly as possible, just give you guys a basic, mana'o on it. Again, I teach preschool, so I try to keep it as basic as possible, because we teach it to those keiki as well. So if you ever do see my homana, don't talk about Thurston, don't talk about Paulette, don't talk about Stevens. They might throw a fit, that's why. But we come from kupuna, who are perhaps the most skilled in everything that they did. Yeah. So when we talk about science and the media and those who are in opposition to us being opposed to this, a lot of times they try to paint this picture that it's an anti-science movement. But as you guys know, our kupuna were some of the most skilled scientists in the world. In a time where most of the world thought that the world was flat and was scared to sail more than 5 miles offshore, our kupuna were traveling across the largest ocean in the world with all materials and all supplies needed to go ahead and sustain life, and not just to survive, but to thrive. And when Captain Cook came here in 1778, the estimates of population is anywhere between 400,000 to 1 million people. And Captain Cook, who had been all over the world at that time, you know, discovering places, he documents in his diary how amazed and how he couldn't believe how productive and how clean the land was. He had never seen any place like it. Yeah, so when we read the Mo'olelo, people call our kupuna savages and people who lived in darkness and were unenlightened. We can look to those same people, those same documents, and see that they were absolutely impressed and couldn't believe the productivity of the Aina and the productivity of the people. And so when Captain Cook came, again, 400,000 to 1 million people. By the time we get to the overthrow in 1893, there's about 40,000 Hawaiians alive. So basically, that's a 90 to 95% decrease in population. For every 20 people that were alive when Captain Cook arrived, only one survived. And those survivors are our kupuna. Yeah, so we are that legacy. We are that kuleana. We are the culmination of all of our kupuna. We're not just a product of it, but we are the culmination of all of our kupuna. And so we have heavy kuleana, I believe. And for many, many years, we've been denied the opportunity of awamuin that kuleana, of assuming that kuleana, because we have not been able to determine for ourselves what is right and what is pono. And we have not been able to, govern ourselves and malama our aina. So, again, Cook comes in 1778. In 1819, so Kamehameha does his thing, unifies the islands, brings all the lahui under one rule. In 1819, he passes away. And when he passes away, he gives the kingdom to his son, Kalanikua Liho Liho, and he gives the war god, Ku Kailimoku, to Kekua Kalani. And there's a civil war that takes place in Kona, in Keoho, at Kuamo'o, and Leke Leke. Yeah, where Kekua Kalani was fighting against Kalani Moku and his side in the battle of preserving the kapu. And so the kapu was abolished by Ka'ahumanu, who was the Kuhina Nui upon the death of Kamehameha, and kind of shared that role with Liho Liho. And so, there's a lot of misconceptions in our history a lot of times where, Hawaiians blame the Haulis for everything. Yeah, the Haulis came, they abolished the kapu. The Haulis came, they stole the land. One thing, that Keanusai will say is that it's pretty much impossible to steal land unless, you can put dirt in your pocket and walk away. That's about as best as you can do. Land is immovable. And so, as we get more educated and more knowledgeable, we learn that we need to kind of take responsibility and give accountability to our ali'i. And so in 1820, the missionaries arrived to Hawaii. And there was discussions among Kamehameha in his time with Vancouver. Yeah, Vancouver had come to Hawaii, and he was really trying to put a stop to the wars. And Kamehameha wasn't really for it, not because he wanted to fight, because he believed that, a final war will put an end to all war. And so the thought of missionaries and Christianity was actually introduced in the time of Kamehameha. And some say that Kamehameha was a little bit interested in it. He wasn't willing to necessarily convert to it, but he was interested in it. But there's this mo'olelo that Vancouver is telling him, you need to nana ikeia, you need to look to Christianity, this one God and this and that. And there's a story where Kamehameha says, okay, if your God is so powerful, it's so great, send your kahuna up to the cliff. I'm going to send mine. We have them jump off the cliff. Whichever person lives, that's whose God is stronger. And Vancouver's like, oh, no, we cannot do that. And as well, na mana koa, go up there. And so, again, it was a trick, because we all know that our kupuna did that thing lele kava. Yeah, they jump off the cliffs all the time. But they weren't willing to try it. So that kind of gave Kamehameha, okay, maybe you guys not so sure as we are. But he was willing to kind of entertain that. And so missionaries came in 1820. They were expecting missionaries from Great Britain. However, those weren't the ones that came. It was missionaries from America, from Massachusetts area, the ABCFM. And so upon arriving, there was a little bit of hesitation because that wasn't what was expected. But some of the haole advisors of that time, at the time of Kamehameha, told Liho Liho, hey, mai kai. different place, same people, same mana'o. So they come in, and missionaries, a few years later, introduced the practice of reading and writing in about 1822. By 1824, Hawaiians have their first book published already. Yeah, a spelling book within 2 years. And from 1824 until 1843, Hawaii became the most literate country in the world, with nearly a rate of universal literacy, 97%. Yeah, within that short amount of time. And so, our kupuna expressed and showed the ability to not only stay pa'a in our traditions and in our identity, but to adapt and to progress as well with the modern world and the changing things and the things changing around us. And so, as we get to 1843, that's when Kaui Keoli is in power. And he took power a long time before that, 1824, after Liho passed away in London due to measles. But Kaui Keoli took the throne at only 11 years old. But one of the first things he said was, "He puni pala pala ko'u." Yeah, my nation will be a nation of literacy. So by the time 1843 comes, Hawaii is the most universally literate country in the world. And so we start to engage in political relations and international relations with the rest of the world. And Kaui Keoli sends off diplomats to America, France, and Great Britain. He sends off Timoteo Ha'alilio, Sir George Simpson, and William Richards. And they go to these 3 different places in the attempt, the mana'o, to solidify recognition that Hawaii is a sovereign, independent country, because it's a time of Captain Cook. Foreigners were flooding the harbors and flooding the shores of Hawaii. And many influences were coming in. And they recognized that the potential, the pros and the cons of that, and the threats that they faced. And so one way to kind of negate those threats was to gain international recognition from the powers of the world at that time, which was America, Great Britain, and France. And so Kaui Keoli sends off these 3 diplomats. Meanwhile, as these 3 are off doing their business, Hawaii is approached, approached by Lord Paulet, who is a British warship captain. He's the captain of the HMS Carysfort. And he comes to Hawaii upon the request of this guy named Charlton. Charlton was a British subject living in the Hawaiian Kingdom, and he had claimed to have been given a 99-year lease by Kalanimoku. But as we know, the Mahalo did not take place until 1848. So in 1843, there was no such thing as private land ownership. All we had was kalai aina. Yeah, when the Nuali'i would assume the Noho'aupuni, he would redistribute lands to his followers, to his Kanaka. So there was no such thing as private land ownership. So Kaui Keoli never adhered to his request of owning this parcel of land in Honolulu. And so he goes ahead to Lord Paulet, the British warship captain, and complains to him. Paulet comes in defense of his countrymen, of Charlton, and demands that his request be met, that he be given this 99-year lease. And Kaui Keoli, in a sense says, who you? This is my aupuni. This is my aina. You guys don't come here and tell us what to do. We have our ways, and we stick to that. And so there's letters going back and forth between Paulet and Kaui Keoli, who has his Kanaka Olelo Haole to transcribe with him. And Paulet basically makes these ridiculous demands that these things be met, and if not, Hawaii faces the bombing of all of Honolulu and a British takeover. And so at this time, not having a military, nearly capable enough of fending off these kind of powers, Kaui Keoli relinquishes the sovereignty of the land. He ho'oku'u ia ke'eoka aina under protest to the British government, with the mana'o that upon finding out the facts and doing their due diligence in researching what the facts were, that Great Britain, being a pono aupuni, will restore the e'oka aina. And so he relinquishes sovereignty. And so on February 24th, 1843, all Hawaiian flags in the kingdom are brought down, and the British flags are raised by Paulet. Kaui Keoli sends off his letter of protest. It reaches this man named Admiral Thomas, who is the head of Paulet. Paulet was the captain of a warship. Admiral Thomas was the head of the Pacific Fleet. So he was the Mananui. And so he comes into Hawaii and he investigates. And upon finding the facts, he determines that what Paulet and Charlton were claiming were absolutely ludicrous, and they had no claims to do so. And so he actually banishes Paulette from the islands. And on July 31st, 1843, he goes ahead and he pulls down the British flag. And he re-raises the Hawaiian flag in a place in London that is now known as Thomas Square. Yeah. And so that day has come to be known as Sovereignty Restoration Day. La Ho'i Ho'i Ea. Now again, meanwhile, we have diplomats across the world who are attempting to solidify recognition from these powers so that Hawaii doesn't have to face these kind of pilikia. And so Timoteo Ha'alilio and William Richards, they go to America by way of Mexico. Sir George Simpson goes to France and Great Britain because Simpson is actually a British subject. He's from Great Britain. So they utilize those connections, and of course William Richards from America. So they utilize those connections to go ahead and try to solidify these relationships. They get to these places and they find progress very, very hard to make. Not many people are interested in recognizing Hawaii as an independent country because they have too much interest in Hawaii themselves. And so what Timoteo and Richards do is they plant a rumor in U.S. Congress saying, we are prepared to be annexed with Great Britain if America is not prepared to recognize us as a sovereign independent country. Meanwhile, in Great Britain, Simpson is saying the same thing. Great Britain, we're prepared to be annexed by America if Great Britain is not ready to recognize us as a sovereign country. And so, again, because they have interests, neither of these countries want Hawaii to go under the other. And so the best case scenario at that point is sharing, in a sense, divided interests. So progress ensues, and on November 28th, 1843, at the Court of London, Hawaii is formally recognized as a sovereign independent country by Great Britain and France. King Felipe of France and Queen Victoria of Great Britain signed a document known as the Anglo-Franco Proclamation, recognizing Hawaii as a sovereign independent country, equal and co-equal to that of America, Great Britain, and France. And Hawaii is actually the first non-European country in the world to be recognized, before China, before Japan, before many of these places that are powers in the world. And so Hawaii, again, assumes that responsibility. And during this time, so when people want to talk about, Hawaii, Hawaiians living in the past and so on and so forth, we are very progressive. We're more so than other countries, quicker than other countries. And during this time, Kapu Aloha actually imposes something known as compulsory education, which is what we all do today. Yeah? The mandatory or the mandating that children go to school. And so in this time, there's only one state in America that had compulsory education. So Hawaiians were very progressive in that sense. So 1843 we're recognized, and before this, 1839 there's the Bill of Rights, 1840 there's the Constitution, 1843 international recognition, and La Ho'i Ho'i Ea, July 31st, and La Ku'oko'a, November 28th, were the first two national holidays of the Hawaiian Kingdom. So from 1843 to 1893, 50 years, there's much things happening in that time. 1864, separation of powers, so on and so forth. But in 1893, a group of businessmen, mostly American, but not all American, some Hawaiian as well, some other foreigners, but a group of businessmen, as we all know, January 17th, 1893, overthrew the queen, our queen, Lili'uokalani. And again, she had a template of what to do because Great Britain had tried to take over Hawaii before, 50 years earlier. And Kapu Aloha, having good faith in the powers of the world that they were a Pono government, if they follow the process, upon finding the facts, the sovereignty of the kingdom will be restored. But we all know that never happened. That's why we face situations like this. And so, 1893, overthrow. They become the provisional government, which is basically a self-proclaimed government with no recognition from anybody else. 1894, they adapt their name to the Republic of Hawaii. Still self-proclaimed. And there's attempts at treaties between this illegal government and the government of Hawaii. The government of America. Attempts to annex Hawaii to America, because all these people wanted to do was have Hawaii become a part of America so that they could send their sugar from Hawaii to America tax-free. So again, kala. Money was the basis of all of it. And so, multiple treaty attempts attempted. They were never able to solidify and ratify those treaties because in a time when only 40,000 Hawaiians were alive, there were 38,000 signatures gathered protesting the annexation of Hawaii to America. And these aloha aina, these patriots were known as James Kaulia, David Kalauokalani, Emma Navahi, and Kuaihelani Campbell. And they went ahead into the Kuahivi, into the Kai, into the Kula, and they gathered all of the people. And again, 38,000 people signed petitions protesting the annexation of Hawaii. So they were never able to ratify a treaty. But 1898 comes, and that begins the Spanish-American War, where America is out in the Pacific, fighting wars with the Philippines, Guam, so on and so forth. And so they need Hawaii as a military outpost. The same reason why they're reluctant to Ho'oku'u Hawaii in these days, because of the military strategies and the fact that Pearl Harbor is the best place in all of the Pacific to have a military outpost. So what they do is they pass a joint resolution called the Newlands Resolution, which was introduced by this a senator from Nevada. And basically a joint resolution is a domestic law. It's a law that holds no authority and no power outside of the boundaries of its territory, which at that time Hawaii clearly was. That's why they're attempting to annex it. But again, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have change.org, we never have the 10 o'clock news and so on and so forth. So this information wasn't easily accessible to us like it is today. And so America was able to trick the world that Hawaii became a part of the United States. And since then, they were able to manipulate us and train us to be people that we're not. And this starts in 1896 when the provisional government, or the Republic of Hawaii at that time, bans Hawaiian language in all public schools, in all public places. And we know the stories from our kupuna, how they tell us, you guys so lucky, you guys get to do these kind of things. Because when I was growing up, we couldn't. We never were able to, because if I spoke Hawaiian at school, we'd be beaten. Our hands would be placed on the table and they would smack us with rulers and yardsticks. And so basically our identity was beaten out of our kupuna. It was forced out of our kupuna. And so over the years, there's been institutionalized denationalization and Americanization of our people. And we've been a part of that. We've fallen into that trap because our kupuna told their keiki, lava. No going to school, no getting beaten for speaking your language. It's time that you conform, lava already. And anybody here with ohana, maybe you guys have younger brothers, younger sisters. If your younger brother, younger sister would come home every day crying because they were beaten for speaking their language, eventually we'd say the same thing. Lava, conform. And so, for many, many years, we were tricked into being American. And up until the time that Hawaiian charter schools, Hawaiian immersion schools, Hawaiian medium schools were established, we were always taught the wrong history. We were always taught that America had 50 states, we were the 50th state. When I went to summer school, second grade, one of the first things my teacher told me was, Hawaiians are fighting to be a part of America. We were fighting against Alaska because we wanted to be the 49th. But Alaska beat us. Shucks. So we got second place. And I believe that. Even though I went to Hawaiian immersion school, going to summer school in the summertime, we did the Pledge of Allegiance, sang the Star Spangled Banner, and I grew up thinking that I was American and proud to be it. But then again, now we've institutionalized charter schools, Hawaiian medium schools, Hawaiian immersion schools, where I'm sure we learn, instead of learning about the 50th state or about 50 states, we learn about 8 islands and the channels. Instead of learning about presidents, we learn about ali'i and kahuna and our kupuna and aina. And so we're at a time now where we're learning the truth. And the truth is coming out in kula like this. So we are very fortunate in a sense. It's our right, but that right has been denied from us for a long, long time. And so we're fortunate in a sense to have kula like Kanuha Aina, who I wish when I was growing up, I wish I could go to a kula like that. I had the opportunity to work with some keiki in a previous job, and they absolutely blew my mind away. But we're learning the truth now. We're learning the truth, and now we're able and confident enough to stand on it. So one thing that we're trying to do here in this Mauna Kea movement, while the whole world is watching us, is let the world know that we are not the 50th state. That we are indeed a sovereign, independent country simply under an illegal and prolonged occupation by the United States of America. And they're doing it illegally. And so what we're a part of now, I think, is the greatest activation, mobilization, and unification of our people since 1897. Yeah, since a time where 40,000 Hawaiians were alive, 38,000 signatures gathered. If we look around the world, the whole world is following this. There's people all over the sides of the street holding signs, chanting, singing, and in our not our protest, but in our protection, yeah, we do it in a culturally foundational way as well, by chanting, by utilizing cultural symbolism like hale, like oli, like pula. And we get some other ones that we're gonna try out too, but we never use them yet, so we're gonna keep that up our sleeve for now. But again, we need to know that we come from kupuna, who are very, very akamai. And since this illegal occupation, we have not had the ability to determine our educational systems, our land systems, and our traditions and our history. And it's been manipulated and hidden from us for so long. But we're coming to the time where, again, we're seeing the truth. We're seeing what really happened, and now we're seeing what can happen. And so, I believe that if we can fix this pilikia, if we can use this movement as a platform to explain to the world what the truth is, that one day we can ho'oponopono this pilikia. And some of these, some of the main misconceptions is that, like when the hurricanes come, yeah, we had like hurricane season a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever it was, that choke hurricanes. And every time a hurricane is coming or a tsunami threat or whatever it is, you watch the news, you got all these different mana'o of, if we get hit and our harbors are inaccessible, Hawaii only has a 2-week stock supply of food and resources. But if we look to the time of our kupuna, again, Cook came here and couldn't believe the productivity and the cleanliness of the land. And for instance, at the construction site, if you go up there, what you're looking down to is Waimea, Honoka'a, into Waipio. And Waipio alone, Waipio by itself in times of famine, could feed all of Hawaii Island and parts of Maui. Just Waipio. Yeah, and so, but we live in a world where everything revolves around money. And so, for us, we believe that if we can use this situation to create awareness and bring forth truth to the rest of the world, that one day when the kingdom is restored, when the government is restored, that we can manage our aina better than they do now. Yeah, that we can produce food instead of money. We can build hale instead of telescopes. We can feed our people and end homelessness. So when you look back to the to the kingdom, there was no homeless. Everybody had hale. Everybody had hale. If you didn't, yeah, e nā Kanaka, e mālama o koe i ke akua, e mālama hoi i ke Kanaka nui a me ke Kanaka iki. E hele ka ele makule ka luahine me ke kama a moa i ke ala, a ohe mea nānei ho'opilikia. E wano, make. Yeah, that we had the ability, that things in that time were so peaceful and so solidified, that you could sleep in the middle of the road if you wanted to. Yeah, kupuna, keiki, makua. You can sleep in the middle of the road and be unharmed. And anybody who harmed you would face the ultimate consequence. And now when you look at, I lived in Honolulu for a while, homeless, all over the place. And our government and our people don't malama them, but instead they kick them off and say, you cannot be here. So, there's a lot of pilikia. And again, we can choose to address this Mauna Kea, and then when this is called, we go ahead and address the next issue, the next issue, the next issue. But again, what we're trying to do is not just pull the fruits and cut the leaves and cut the branches, but the source of all of this pilikia, the kumu of all of this pilikia, is the fact that the host people and the host culture of these lands aren't able to determine for ourselves what is right and what is pono. And so, I'm not sure when it's going to happen. I truly believe it'll happen in my lifetime, in your guys' lifetime. And seeing the things that you guys are able to do, the knowledge that you guys are able to maintain and able to implement, the strategies and the mana'o, and your guys' kuana'iki, your perspective on things, I have no doubt in my mind that our future is better and brighter because of, and it all starts with education. It all starts with education. So I think you guys should be very, very honored, proud, and privileged to be able to go to schools that your makua and your kupuna were not able to go to. Because I know for a fact that there's many of us here, even though I had the opportunities, I see so much more potential in you folks than I see in ourselves. Yeah, And at this point, we're doing pretty good. You know, we're doing pretty good. But you guys will do better. And again, it all starts with education. It all starts with speaking the truth. And so, what we're trying to do in this time is utilize this opportunity while the whole world is watching us to speak the truth, so that we can know, so that they can know what happened, and that we know what happened, and that we intend on fixing it. And so, that's one of our strategies here, you know, is to malama the people, malama all that is sacred. But when it comes down to it, it's all illegal, because we're under an illegal occupation, and what should be implemented is Hawaiian Kingdom law in a time where American law is implemented. So, Kalamai, I know I've got into all this political stuff, but it's basically oya i'o. Yeah, that we need to know that we come from a people who are not unprogressive, who are not anti-science, who are not unable to adapt. Hawaii had running water, flushing toilets, telephones, and electricity in Iolani Palace before the White House did. Kalakaua was the first head of state to dine in the White House. Kalakaua was the first head of state to circumnavigate the globe. Yeah, our kupuna sailed across the Pacific Ocean back and forth, Southeast Asia, Tahiti, Hawaii, before the rest of the world thought that the world was round. So we need to understand that we come from great kupuna, and we come from a great legacy, and we are that legacy. And we need to hold ourselves in that stance and be that. And again, like Kanaka kind of said, you know, we're not trying to be our kupuna, because we are our kupuna. We are our kupuna. No matter what we do, we are our kupuna. And just like them, we're able to adapt. We're able to, quote unquote, progress in the Western mindset. And so it's something that we should be proud of. It's something that we should know. But it's something that's still hard to talk about, because many people have sensitive ears to that kind of stuff. Talk about, oh, Hawaii's not the 50th state, and yeah, so my mana'o to us is that the earlier we can start speaking it, the earlier we can start understanding it, the more potential we have in bringing truth to it, and implementing it, and making it a real life situation, instead of just something that lives in the book. And that's the value of these kula, because again, you guys aren't just reading things from the puke, but you guys come out, you guys do your oli, do your hula, do your mo'olelo, do your practices, and you make it real. Yeah, in a time where for many people who came before us didn't have that opportunity. So, mahalo nui a'oukou for coming today. This is the second time Kanuha has come to Mauna, Wakea. I'm absolutely just impressed with what you guys are able to do, with what your kumu are able to do with you guys. And I think you guys should feel very, very fortunate to have this opportunity, because I know many people who came before you do many, many things to have the opportunity that you guys have. So I hope you guys take advantage of it. I hope you guys utilize it. I hope you guys understand the importance of it, because it is truly, truly, truly important. Mahalo.